A very good morning to you and welcome to New Dawn. It is 6 a.m. in Nairobi, Kenya on this Friday, the 5th of July, 2024. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. We're glad you are watching us this morning. We'd like to hear where you're watching us from. To speak to us, our SMS feedback line is 21222. Speak to us on X at K24 Tv. The hashtag is New Dawn. We'll be taking a look at the top stories making headlines this morning, even as we take a look at the week in review, a look back at the top stories that have shaped news for the better part of the week. But first, a look at the top stories making headlines this morning. Now, calm is gradually returning to the city of Nairobi after weeks of protests that have rocked the nation. However, traders were yesterday seen taking precautions by hiring private guards to protect their businesses from vandalism witnessed in the past protests. Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja has further noted that Nairobi County has experienced significant revenue losses as a result of the protests. The governor also distanced himself from any involvement in financing criminals using the protests as a cover to cause destruction. Here's David Kagina with the details.
The atmosphere remained calm in Nairobi today amid the anti-government protests calls, with businesses operating cautiously. However, in some buildings, young men wearing reflective jackets and carrying batons were seen patrolling. Joseph Mutiso tells us that he is part of this group, their role being to protect the business premises from thugs who have been hiding behind the Gen Z protests.
Sisi tuko hapa leo, matajiri wametuita, wametuambia tuchunge kazi zao na tuweke amani. Hata kama watu wanaandamana, waandamaneni peaceful way, lakini si kuguza mali ya watu.
While he supports the protests, he is critical of some of those who are taking advantage of the situation. His temporary job pays him at least 1,000 shillings a day.
Sisi hatutaki kushughulika na wale waandamana au tuwapigane au tupigane nao. Pia sisi tunaunga mkono, bali tuungane kwa amani. Sisi wote tupate kazi na haki yetu ionekane.
Claretta Gaki, one of the leaders of the Moi Avenue Business Community Association, explains that although there was no announcement of protests, they took the precautionary measures of hiring private security to avoid losses.
Front shop, kama uko na duka moja, unalipa 1,000. Like me, I have 3 of them. Nimelipa 3,000. Tuko na vijana over 50. Tumewambaia rungu na reflectors. Tumeweza kumotivate pia our soldiers wetu wenye mnaona hapa. Na pia sisi wenyewe ndio tuweze kufungua kazi. Kuna wale watu among us wenye wako na manduka, tumemotivate ndio pia wakuwe kwa ground, waweze kusaidia vijana juu. Unajua pia hatujui tensions za hawa vijana juu ni vijana wa area tu. Hatuwezi waachilia kazi peke yao. Lazima kukue pia na watu wa ndani wenye watakuwa wanajua ni nini wanasema.
The Nairobi business owners have further claimed that the thugs are being funded by politicians within the county. However, Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja has denied any involvement, attributing the protest to significant loss of revenue to the county government.
I would hate it that something like that would have been planned from City Hall, from wherever it is. Normally when you're in such a situation, the first casualty is the truth. And when the first casualty is the truth, opportunistic politicians even try to bring themselves into such, a move to taint their opponents, And so if somebody would try to claim that I, the governor, was meeting people to plan violence in City Hall, while one, I was in Diani, number one, with my cabinet from Sunday. I've just come back this morning. And number two, I have always believed in siasa safi. I've always believed in that freedom of expression.
President Ruto is expected to hold a virtual meeting with the Gen Z youth tomorrow, with business owners expressing hope that a solution will be found and businesses can continue without fear of protests. David Kagina, K24, Nairobi.
When all travel operations along the busy Nairobi-Mombasa highway at Emali town are grounded to a halt after youth blocked the road during anti-government demos yesterday. In videos circulating online, several protesters were seen looting property from a supermarket. In Kitengela, Kajiado County, police disarmed youth possessing crude weapons masquerading as security guards to protect business premises attacked by goons during Tuesday's protests. And as our reporter Electin Odera now tells us, youth in Kisumu County have vowed to continue with the anti-government demos.
As has been the norm of youth turning up in large numbers to participate in anti-government demos recently, the numbers today were different. Only a handful turned up, characterized with looting of property. In Emali town, Makueni County, for instance, travel operations grounded to a halt as protesting youth barricaded the busy Nairobi-Mombasa highway. A shop alleged to belong to a politician in the area was not spared either. In Kitengela, Kajiado County, police disarmed youth in possession of crude weapons, masquerading as security guards to protect a popular joint in the area. The more than 30 youth armed with rungus and brand new pangas maintained that they had been hired to protect the entertainment joint. The police said the youth wielding pangas were a security threat. Elsewhere, most businesses in Kisumu City remained closed for fear of possible destruction and looting of property. Most schools within the city did not open either, with heavy police presence in the city streets. Residents, however, vowed to continue with their demonstrations until President William Ruto addresses their demands.
Leo tumekaa tu, hata hatuna kazi tunafanya, tumekaa tu tukiangalia tu.
Najua mama ndiye anajua uchungu ya mtoto. Na kuzaliwa Ruto ajue ni bahati. Sasa tumelose nini hii age yangu 30 kurudi chini, tumelose watu wengi sana. Na feel kama pia yeye feel kama ni mtoto wake angekuwa naona, angekuwa nasikia aje.
And in Kisii, Governor Simba Arati faulted the police for allegedly failing to act promptly to contain goons who looted property during Tuesday's protest in the town.
We can deal with those leaders at the right time, because when you want to touch down those houses, know that their children are innocent children, they are innocent people in those compounds. Let us not try that.
He further faulted the authorities, blaming them of irresponsibility by hurling tear gas canisters at the referral health facilities intensive care unit and children's ward.
There were 30 injuries which were reported in the hospital. 22 are still in the wards. 2, they are due for theatre. 2 had gunshots. And the rest had the beatings from the goons.
Pockets of demos were also witnessed in Migori County today. Electin Odera, K24 TV.
Despite calling off yesterday's protests, Gen Z have vowed to regroup and protest on Sunday in line with the Saba Saba movement to tame paid goons infiltrating their peaceful anti-government protests. They have urged fellow youth to come out in large numbers to subdue the criminals. And as Maria Mujahid now reports, a section of youth on X space have disregarded President Ruto's meetup today, asking him to first address their grievances to the letter.
Because politicians say Mungu.
The Gen Z have seemingly put on hold anti-government protests following infiltration by paid criminals to disrupt their peaceful demonstrations. Case in point, last Tuesday protests. Affirming that they are still ready to hold accountable today's government, they have urged their counterparts to turn up in large numbers on Sunday in line with Saba Saba protests.
Nations have been infiltrated by goons, and the way forward has to be more numbers to overwhelm these goons. With Saba Saba, we need numbers. This is going to be one of the historic events.
In light of the anticipated X-Space meet-up with the president today to address their demands, the same has been pushed to Friday. However, youths now say that they are not ready to have a sitting with the president, asking him to implement their demands to show goodwill.
I believe that these people ought to have a space prior to the X-Space with the president so that the views of the people can be collected. And now those people who are going to now speak with the president are going to now just go and platform and forward all of these views to the president.
Members of the Communist Party of Kenya, led by George Kiritu, have further asked President Ruto to wait to be invited by them and not vice versa.
You aren't traveling anywhere anymore, so you should be able to meet us at our own time.
On the other hand, Karimi Josephine has called on the government to act tough rather than look for their audience in social media spaces.
I don't think the president will tell us anything new, because hizo interviews amekuwa akifanya, amekuwa tu akidouble down, akisema the finance bill is good na ni kama scare tactics, wakisema sasa juu finance bill haijapita mtakasikia sasa.
However, it is emerging that there is a division among the youth, with some saying they are ready to have a sit down with the president to express their demands.
Kwa hii maandamano yetu ya Gen Z tulikuwa na yale maneno ambayo ilikuwa ina concern wananchi wetu wa Kenya. Our fellow Gen Zs wa accept dialogue na Mheshimiwa Rais.
Kwa mimi nitakuwa ndani. Siwezi kataa. Hapo pia mimi nitatoa maoni yangu na pia yeye nitasikia maoni yake yenye anatoa kwa wadau.
Mariam Jahid, K24, Nairobi.
A requiem mass was held yesterday to celebrate the life of Rex Masai, who was fatally shot dead during the anti-finance bill demos, with calls for justice for Rex and other victims of the protests renting the air. The church has also been called out for turning a cold shoulder to young people when they needed them the most. And as Bentura Kwamboka now reports, the public is also calling on the judicial system to expedite justice by bringing the alleged killer cops to book.
Friends and families gathered today at ACK St. Stephen's Cathedral in Jogoo Road in a somber mood to celebrate the life of the first victim of police brutality during the recent anti-government demos, Rex Masai, who was fatally shot dead by the police.
But you must also be ready for a quick and violent judgment.
In a moving tribute recounting the last words shared, describing the pain of losing a son, the mother, whose tribute was read by Masai's aunt, recounted the tragic end of a life so young, snatched through police brutality.
May the Lord teach me even how to delete your number in my phone. I don't know how to delete your number. Good night, my teacher. Good night, my love. Good night, Rex, till we meet again.
Describing him as a person of integrity and compassion and one who stood against misuse of power, his grandmother said his grandchild's death is a stark reminder of the price paid for fighting for justice.
I thank you, youth. I'm asking you to continue to fight for justice for all the children. Let God give you strength and give you power. Stand for justice for those who died. God will give you power.
While presiding over the Requiem Mass, the church has strongly condemned President Ruto's utterances on victims who were brutally shot during the protest.
During the presidential roundtable, he was asked, Mr. President, what do you have to say about the police killings? They mentioned Rex specifically. My president said he will try and look for the parents and explain to them. The parents to Rex and the parents to over 40 Kenyans that lost their lives in the past 2 weeks, they don't need any explanation. What they need is justice.
However, in a turn of event, the church has had itself to blame for turning their back on the young people when they needed them the most.
Let me tell you why I'm saying it as it is. Because the people that brought and introduced the president to us in church are now quiet when the church is when the nation is in chaos, when people are being killed, yet they are the ones who brought him to the church.
Further, the masses are calling for prosecution of the alleged killer cop who pulled the trigger on Rex.
The day familia Rex, majenzi wataka kwa koti, naone ule karau alimada Rex face to face. And the real justice ni saa zile judge atahukumu jamaa for murder.
Rex Masai was allegedly shot during the Occupy Parliament protest and died minutes after being taken to Bliss Hospital in the CBD. He will be laid to rest tomorrow at their family home in Machakos County. Bentura Kwamboka, K24, Nairobi.
361 people were injured, 627 arbitrarily arrested, and 32 forcefully disappeared in connection with the ongoing anti-government demos across the country. This is according to the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, which has strongly condemned the violence witnessed during the protests, resulting from both the excessive use of force by law enforcement officers and the presence of what appears to be hired goons. This comes even as the Commission called on the government to facilitate open dialogue with citizens to address the root cause of the protests and work towards a meaningful solution. Here's Robbie Omondi with that report.
In the recent protests led by the Gen Z movement resisting the Finance Bill 2024, the police were seen using lethal crowd control weapons like water cannons, tear gas and live ammunition against peaceful protesters, which led to unnecessary injuries and fatalities. The Kenya National Human Rights Commission now says that 361 people were injured, 627 arbitrarily arrested, and 32 forcibly disappeared.
These numbers may have gone up following the protests on Tuesday, 2nd of July. The police's use of lethal crowd control weapons has led to unnecessary injuries and fatalities, escalating tensions and undermining citizens' right to assemble, demonstrate, picket, petition, which rights are enshrined in Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010.
However, the Commission has expressed concerns over the police failing to uphold a court order which barred them from using brutal force or any other forms of violence against peaceful protesters, calling on the Independent Policing Oversight Authority to ensure those responsible for the actions are held accountable.
These reprehensible acts not only undermine public safety, but also inflict severe economic and emotional harm on our communities. Therefore, as the Police Reforms Working Group, we stand in solidarity with business owners who have suffered loss due to these criminal activities.
The Commission has also condemned the actions of purported hired goons who engaged in looting and destroying of property, saying that those responsible must be brought to book to restore confidence, protect businesses, and ensure the incidents do not recur.
Law enforcement officers should adhere to the principles of transparency, accountability, and respect for human rights. This adherence includes ensuring that the response to protest is proportionate and lawful, avoiding the use of excessive force and distinguishing between peaceful demonstrators and those engaging in criminal activities. The police must facilitate peaceful protests, protect protesters, protect medical personnel, protect the media and other professionals from any harm, and prevent the infiltration of the protest by malicious actors.
To this end, they have called upon the state to ensure protection of citizens by distinguishing between peaceful demonstrators and those engaging in criminal activities.
The state must act decisively to restore peace and order while respecting the fundamental rights of the citizens. Together, we must strive to build a society that values justice, transparency, and the protection of human rights for all.
They have also called on the government to ensure accountability for those responsible for the violence and opportunistic crimes during the protests. Robbie Omondi, K24.
Mombasa Gen Z youth yesterday refrained from street demonstrations while calling on President William Ruto to take their demands seriously and ensure all youth are engaged and their demands considered. The youth took the initiative to visit their colleagues who were injured during Tuesday's demonstrations, currently admitted at the Coast General Hospital.
Normalcy has returned in Mombasa County as the Gen Z today refrained from conducting demonstrations. The Gen Z instead converged at the Coast General Hospital, where they paid visit to their colleagues who were injured during Tuesday demonstrations, currently receiving treatment.
Kwa pole wale wenzetu ambao waliumia na kuwatia moyo
na kuwafariji ili waweze kujisikia wako pamoja na sisi na waweze kujiona kuwa hawakuachwa upweke, kwa sababu tumekuwa nao katika safari yote hiyo ya maandamano.
While at the hospital, they condemned the use of excessive force by police while declaring a break from protest to strategize after goons infiltrated their demonstrations, which were peaceful, causing destruction of properties and death.
Nawaambia saizi tumesitisha maandamano haya ili tuweze kustrategize tena, kwa sababu tumeona we don't know if ni njia ya government ama ni njia ya watu wengine kuhaya goons ili waweze kuinterrupt na peaceful demonstration.
Kama vijana tuliweza kuangalia tukaona tusi lose vijana zaidi na tusivujishe damu nyingi, so tunaweza tukakae tuka-restrategize ni jinsi gani tunaweza kukua safe sisi kama vijana ambao ni waandamanaji wa amani.
The youths have also called on President William Ruto to engage all young people in the country and take a lead in the fight against corruption, nepotism, and to ensure equal opportunities.
Tulisimama kwenye kura, tukapiga kura, tukakaa usubuhi na usiku kwa sababu ya kuwachagua hao viongozi. Kwa nini hao viongozi baada ya kupata wao waturudi nyuma kwenye migongo yetu na watuongoze vibaya?
Tunaomba hatua ichukuliwe na tuweze kujua ni kina nani ambao wanaendelea kufund hawa goons, ndio at least wakuwa wanajua sisi Gen Z.
Serikali bado tuko na nyinyi, still put you people towards, that's the thing.
In a rare turn of events, a section of elders in Mombasa have supported the Gen Z demonstrations while urging the government to crack the whip.
Nchi yenu msijaribu kuichoma, kwa sababu kesho mko watoto wenu watakuja kuwa wako na sisi tuko tunaondoka, lakini nyinyi mnakuja nyuma. Kwa hivyo ninawaomba vijana, kwa sababu tunawapenda, nyinyi watoto wetu ni wajukuu wetu, tunawapenda na tunawaheshimu. Kwa hivyo tunaomba kwa amani ile mnafanya kwanza, mlipendeza hata nje pia, nchi za nje wale wako nje waliwaunga mkono. Lakini katika hii safari nyingine umefanya hii mambo ya kuchoma na kuibia watu haikutupendeza.
Bonfas.
President William Ruto has been called upon to dissolve his cabinet as the Kenyan population continues to decry bad governance. On the second day of the State of the Nation debate in the Senate, senators took to the floor to address some of the concerns that have been raised by the youth during the demonstrations in the country.
As the nation continues to search for a solution to the issues that have been raised by the young people that took to the streets for 3 weeks in a row, the Senate, for a second time, discussed the state of the nation, calling out opulence in government at the expense of the people. The senators now want the head of state to take a second look at his cabinet and do the necessary thing, which is to dissolve it, claiming it is not serving the president well.
Expectations of the nation. It could be too early. But of course, the promises were in the next 100 days, in the next 3 months, we shall have this and that and that. Honorable Speaker, we made some confessions. We made some promises that this government will be comprised of Mawambogas, the young people, boda, and it was a common phrase, not exactly for the president, for anybody. That was the talk of Kenya Kwanza. Honorable Speaker, what we have seen in return is total contrast to what the promises were. The boys that are routing today in the streets, in the campaigns, we expected them to be in positions. But in return, Honorable Speaker, we have witnessed and we have seen some recycled corruptive faces in this government.
The people who mattered were the leaders and owners of parties. Today, the true bosses are the youngsters, the Gen Zs, our brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters. Mr. Speaker, I heard the president say that he wants to set up certain committees to go around the country to find out what the youth want. But why do you ask for a job when you don't know what the people who elected you want, Mr. Speaker? And sometimes we can propose a lot of things, and yet the solutions lie here in this constitution.
Senators further want a re-evaluation of the nation's direction, calling for responsible leadership.
2 years would have lapsed in the first term of government. It is about time for the president to be able to really look very, very deeply into whether or not political reward has really managed to help him manage the political government into delivering the result that is required. I say this because I have first-hand experience on many issues. I have examples of cabinet secretaries I I'm a co-principal or in Kenya Kwanza, but I have cabinet secretaries in this government that have tried to really look for, try to make phone calls to, not for personal issue, but issues affecting the public that have elected us into office to represent them.
They are protests that expose the nation's underbelly, protests that brought about a rude awakening to the political class that the future of the nation had their eyes on their representatives.
Mr. Speaker, will not be the Gen Z. It will be us in office. It will be the wickedness in high places. It will be the principalities and powers that reside in State House, that reside in this Senate, and that reside in the National Assembly that will take us there. If we are the problem, then the Gen Zs have all legitimate rights to kick us out.
Passport brings us a break on New Dawn. When we come back, look at us making headlines on the dailies on this Friday, the 5th of July. Do stay with us.
Your Saturday morning won't be the same again.